To all my family and friends who supported me and inspired me, together we have made a difference. This is for you. My story really begins the summer before I entered high school, when my mother signed me up for Take Action Leadership Camp with the organization Me to We, to support me in finding my voice and to help me understand that I had a place in this world and that I too could make a difference. It was a great camp experience that inspired me to be very involved throughout the past 4 years. In my social justice council at high school, working on some of the Free the Children initiatives, and continuing to go to their camps every summer, and volunteering locally with Me to We and at their annual We Days in Toronto. Through the Free the Children organization and their Take Action initiatives through Me to We, I met and befriended so many phenomenal people. Meeting other like-minded people who were involved and interested in the same things I am empowered me and led me to take my experiences a step further. That is why I decided to travel to Ghana this past August and join others with Me to We. I wanted to be able to learn more about poverty and to be able to see the impact I was making up close in a Free the Children Adopt-A-Village community. On the morning of August 7th, after packing my backpack to the brim with everything I would need, from leather working gloves and safety glasses, to bug spray and my anti-malaria drugs, I headed out of my house with much anticipation for what I would experience the next 3 weeks. I finally met up with the other Me to We volunteers at the airport for the first time. This is the team I would be taking this life-changing trip with. Our bond was instant, and from that point on, we would be known as the Ghana F Alumni Group, F for family, as that is what we became over the next 20 days together, as I said goodbye to my own family. From Toronto, we flew to New York City before boarding our 11-hour flight to Ghana. It was a long trip with not much sleep. I was so excited. The first thing that I noticed when we finally arrived in the capital city of Accra was that the runways were made of dirt, not the paved runways that I was used to. I knew right away I was definitely not North America anymore. It was another 9-hour drive to our accommodations on the coast, close to the rural community we would be working in, so we spent our first night in Accra and got to know each other better. The following morning, we boarded our bus and headed out of the city towards the western coastal region of Ghana. I found it both fascinating and troubling to see that most shopkeepers had no buildings for their stores. So much was made and sold outside of little homemade stands with no roof overhead. Items are sold on the ground or on homemade tables. Some were lucky enough to have umbrellas. I could see a lot of people making and selling pots and vases, as well as beds and other pieces of furniture. Believe it or not, the only CD our driver had for us to listen to throughout the entire trip was not the African music I was expecting to hear, but our very own Canadian icon Celine Dion's greatest hits. It was an unexpected but enjoyable addition to what would be a very long journey, through many towns and villages, with the majority of the ride on bumpy dirt roads, lush tropical terrain, until we finally came to the road that would lead us to the Hideout Lodge. We were stunned when we arrived at the lodge on Butcher Beach, after such an exhausting 2 days of travel, as there was a magnificent view, and the sound of the waves crashing against the sand was unforgettable. Although it was very simple accommodations, it was paradise. We stayed in 6-person rooms with bunk beds and mosquito nets to cover us at night. We were right on the beach, and it was honestly the most beautiful place I have ever been, because there were no hotels or anything else blocking the views. That first evening, we spent getting to know each other in our group, and talking about how different cultures in Ghana compare to what we are used to in Canada. We also had the opportunity to start learning some of the local languages spoken in Ghana, Twi and Fanti. Prior to our first visits in Asemco, the community we would be building a school in within the duration of our trip. The following morning, finally, after all my years of working in social justice and with Me to We, I was able to take that first anticipated walk into our fishing community of Asemco. It was a 45-minute walk down our gorgeous beach in the sunshine and over a hill, down a path through some palm trees. Although I knew what our destination would be, I hadn't quite prepared myself for what I was able to experience. Just as we were getting over the top of the hill, we could see children coming out of their houses and running towards us. It was breathtaking as they all ran up and grabbed our hands and led us down to the beach. There were so many people there just to welcome us. It was so cool. The men were playing drums, clapping, and singing, and we were all pulled into this big circle, and soon we were all dancing with the children. It was so much fun. While I was there, I was wearing my Meet-A-Wee hat and carrying my Meet-A-Wee water bottle, and every child that saw it would take it off my head or out of my hand and say, "Meet-A-Wee, Meet-A-Wee, Meet-A-Wee." And whenever I introduced myself to the children, they would sing, "Amanda, Amanda, Amanda, Amanda," and do a little dance. I felt so special. We all did. I could finally put a face to the people I was about to help. The community assemblyman, Paul Ajay, welcomed us to Asemco and thanked us for all the work we would be doing during our time there, and to help bring education to the children within his community. Then back to dancing. It was really hard to part with the children and head back to the lodge that evening. It was the most meaningful day ever. It was with the promise that we'd be back again the next day that helped me sleep that night. Ghana's natural literacy rate is only 67%. In rural villages like Asemco, the literacy rate can be considerably lower, especially among women and girls. Rural Ghanaians face incredible challenges when it comes to accessing quality primary education. That is why it was so amazing on my first visit to the build site in Asemco the next day to see all the work that the previous Meet-A-Wee volunteers had accomplished. Due to the large fishing industries in Ghana, most children are required to help their parents fish during the day. On average, in rural fishing villages like Asemco, children attend school only 3 days a week. So to see these classrooms coming together was truly amazing. When we got to Asemco, the primary classrooms were already completed by the previous Meet-A-Wee volunteers. The grade 1 classroom needed a bit more paint. The grade 2 classroom also needed a few more coats of paint and the windows to be put in. The grade 3 classroom was just being started. The foundation had already been finished and the beams were being put up for the walls. The ground for the grade 4 classroom had started to be leveled out. They had community men working there, placing the bricks, doing the roofing, and all the other more difficult things that took experience. We were in charge of doing things like mixing cement or mortar by shoveling sand and cement into piles and mixing it with water until it was the right consistency. We made bricks with the molds that we were given, then put them out to dry in rows for the men to lay in the walls. Other days, we were painting and plastering the walls. The plastering was a lot harder than I thought, because it was hard to get it to stick to the wall. The location of the school was on a slight hill, so we had to dig and pickaxe to continue to level the ground for the future buildings. And we even had to uproot trees. Some of the tree roots were huge, and it was extremely hard to do. Sometimes we even had to get some of the men to come and help us. As the trip went on, we all got a lot better at all of these tasks. So, if anyone would like me to pickaxe random holes in their backyard, you can let me know. It was exhausting. The first day was so difficult that the next morning there wasn't a single one of us that wasn't in pain. I don't think I've ever worked as hard as I did on the build site. No matter how much my back or my arms hurt, I kept pushing myself, because I knew that what I was doing was so important. You all helped me to get to Ghana to build this school, and that was exactly what I was going to do. Every ounce of pain was used as a reminder for what I was there for what we were doing together. It was so moving to see so many members of the community come out to help and teach us. And I will never forget the smiling faces of the children every morning as they excitedly came out to greet us at the build site. Especially the little Amanda, 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 Amanda ritual that they would have for me every time that they saw me. It made me feel so special. The people of Asemco definitely carved a spot into my heart. We delved into the complex world of international development and discussed sustainability. Most importantly, we talked about the future and we learned how to set SMART goals. And we also looked at the habits we have, both positive and negative, as well as the habits we should have in order to help us achieve our goals and attain what we value in life. After our work was done and we were back at the hideout, we had leadership training, discussions, and activities, usually 2 or 3 per day. One night after dinner, our facilitators challenged us with an activity called Lockbox, where we learned that asking for help is a symbol of empowerment, not weakness. And that was when we asked for help and worked together. We are often able to exceed our expectations and even defy limits. We also learned about different stereotypes, colonialism, power, privilege, education, and the history of the Pan-American slave trade. Probably one of the most moving experiences of my life was the day that we went to Cape Coast Castle, now overlooking the fishing village below and known as the gateway to West Africa. And through the door of no return, through which more than 3 million African men, women, and children passed as they departed their homes in West Africa as part of the slave trade to the Americas and the Caribbean for nearly 150 years, until the legal trade was abolished in 1807. It was truly an overwhelming experience. At any given 3-month period, the castle held 1,000 men and 300 women. Conditions were appalling. The men were confined to groups of 200 per chamber, roughly the size of a 30 by 15 foot holding cell, and the women 300 per chamber, and a slightly larger holding cell, all with no space to lie down. The floor was littered with human waste, making it now several inches higher than it was when originally built. Many became ill with malaria and yellow fever as they awaited the ships that would take them away from their homes. Any slave who challenged the authorities was thrown into the condemned cell, which held 50 people in a room no bigger than most walk-in closets. There, they would die, deprived of food, water, light, and oxygen, clawing the brick walls and floors as they slowly suffocated to death. As we were finishing up our tour, there was a plaque that read, "In everlasting memory of the anguish of our ancestors. May those who died rest in peace. May those who returned find their roots. May humanity never again perpetrate such injustice against humanity. We the living vow to uphold this." I was learning and experiencing a lot throughout the trip, and my journaling was the time I spent every day reflecting on it all. It was so good to be able to put down my feelings so that when I returned home, I could relive it all. Upon our return home, we finished up the evening with a chat about our thoughts and feelings on our visit to Cape Coast Castle, and the connections it had to many modern-day scenarios. Our volunteer group made strong connections and new friendships while we were away. We created strong bonds not only through all of our hard work at the school, but also over some of our free time at the hideout where we played on the beach, and swam in the ocean to ease our sore bodies, while laughing as we jumped into the breaking waves. We always left the beach with bathing suits full of sand and huge smiles on our faces. Two of my favorite places on the beach were here at my special rock, and sitting at the other end of the beach early every morning with a close friend, watching the sunrise while we reflected on our trip and shared our life's goals. It was so beautiful to see the sun coming up through the fog that lay heavy on the ocean. And up behind the palm trees, it was the best way to start each day. To finish off some of our days, we were treated to a huge beach bonfire, where we sang, played guitar, played games, and just chilled out. We were the Ghana Alumni F group, F for family. For the first year ever, I celebrated my birthday away from my family, and actually on a different continent, halfway around the world. I woke up that morning to my roommates blowing horns in my ears to wake me up. After breakfast, we were fortunate enough to get to watch the newly hatched baby sea turtles make their way down to the beach and to the ocean. The staff had taken care of them after hatching by putting them in buckets, and we were there to witness them being sent off to make their way to the ocean. We all tried to help the slower ones make it there, and watched them flipping and being tossed in the waves as they one by one entered the sea. It was thrilling. My next birthday experience was to take part in the water walk. We had learned about the scarcity and severity of unclean water in Ghana, and it was time to see what it was truly like to do this job. Every day through the school build site, I would see women and girls constantly walking back and forth from the community water source, fetching water to be used for the build site and for all their other needs in the village. First, we had to have an activity on the beach to practice carrying the water on our heads just like all the community people do. We had to wrap our t-shirts into a ball and put them on our heads as a base, for us to then place a big bowl of water on top and practice walking. After our practice, we were given jerry cans with lids to carry our water, as it was obvious that we could not do the walk the traditional way with the bowls without spilling all the precious water on our way back. We left the beach and ventured silently to Asemco's water source, as we reflected on our own water consumption habits at home. I was shocked when we got to the river. This was their only water source. This isn't a picture of their exact water source, but the river was this brown and looked so dirty. This water was used for everything, even drinking, and none of us would dare drink it. Although you might think the community people would boil water to get rid of toxins, many of them can't, because it would require them taking just as many trips back and forth to get the firewood to build the fires to boil the water, and their time was too valuable for them, as it was needed to fish and make a living. The water we fetched was left at the school build site, and we would use it to mix concrete and make mortar for blocks used in the construction of the school the following day. It was a truly challenging experience. After we were all very conscious and thankful for the abundance and easy access to clean water we have back home in Canada. At the end of the day, my birthday was celebrated once again after dinner when the staff wove me a crown out of leaves, placed it on my head, and I had a special chocolate cake presented to me as everyone sang me happy birthday. As a surprise, I was given the birthday card from my family that my mother had secretly given to my group facilitator at the airport when we were leaving Canada. The special notes from each of them, along with a candle that played happy birthday. It was really nice, and it definitely made me feel loved and also homesick. Every day that we were at the build site, the children would come to see us. Whenever we were on our water break, we would talk to them and they would tell us how excited they were about the school and that they were so happy that they could get an education. We talked to a lot of the children there, and every single one that I introduced myself to would continue to sing, "Amanda, Amanda, Amanda, Amanda," when I said my name. Everyone else in my group was just as confused as I was, but I felt extremely special nonetheless. By the end of the trip, I would find out why this was happening, and I'll share that with you later. One day, after a hard morning of working on the build site, we spent the afternoon playing games with the children. We made up games to play with them that included handshakes and clapping games, and we taught them repeat after me songs, which they really loved. All the kids were really outgoing and fun, and I wish we could have spent more time with them. I could never get enough of those smiling faces. While in the village of Asemco, we learned a great deal about the families, their homes, their culture, and the needs of the community. We learned about their main form of income, which is fishing. Over the past few years, they've been catching less and less fish, as there's been big commercial trolling boats from other countries catching all of their fish off the coast of Ghana. This has made it really hard for them because of the shortage of fish. They cannot keep as much for themselves due to the prices going so high. They have to sell almost everything they catch and fish harder and longer days. The men go out in canoe-shaped boats and fish with nets, and they also throw out nets from the shore and haul them in as a community. Men, women, and children. We learned how to throw a net. At least, we tried. It sure was harder than it looked. First, we were shown how to hold the net, and then how they hurled it out of the net so it ballooned out, hovering in the air before hitting the water in a perfect circle. We each tried it on sand to see if we could do it. We all pretty much failed, but it was a real eye-opening experience to try one of the aspects of their daily tasks when fishing. I know it was just a glimpse into what is a very hard life on the water, and especially for the young boys, so that they can provide for their families. As fish is getting more scarce, the community in Asemco depends on more of their staple foods in their diet, which includes fufu. This is a mixture of cassava and plantain that is pounded together in the village by the women and girls. We had a lesson one afternoon in making it by the kitchen staff at our lodge. You first pound the plantain with a long heavy stick with a rounded end until it turns into a soft dough, and then you do the same to the cassava. They are both then mixed by once again pounding them together. This took a lot of trust and timing for the one sitting and turning the dough as the other person stood above pounding, while they lifted their hand to move the dough below. The finished fufu was presented and given to us in a bowl of tomato soup. It was definitely a different lunch. We had one day of exploring Ghana's interior as we traveled 4 hours in the middle of the rainforest to the famous Canopy Walk. First, we went on a long hike through the rainforest by some massive trees. And then we went up and on the 7 rope bridges, way above most of the treetops. It was really beautiful, and also scary for some people in the group. The bridge was only the width of my 2 feet together, and looking down was really incredible. My time in Ghana was life-changing, and mostly I will always remember the children and our time together. One of the young boys that we all got very close with was Paul. Paul is 8 years old, and his mother passed away when he was younger, so his grandmother helps to take care of him now. We all spent a lot of time with Paul over the 3 weeks, because he was always at the build site, so he could boss us around and tell us what we were doing wrong. But just like many other 8-year-olds, he always loved to play with us. Every day, as we were leaving to go back to hideout, he'd come over to the bus and say goodbye. I also met another 8-year-old named Mary. Both of her parents passed away when she was younger, and she is also taken care of by a grandmother. However, her grandmother is very old, so Mary has to take care of her 4 younger siblings. She wakes up at 4:30 a.m. every single morning so that she can fetch water and finish all of her other chores so that she can have enough time to go to school 3 times a week. This is Macy. I met her for the first time at our welcoming ceremony. I danced with her a lot, and she was really funny. She was smiling the whole time and kept laughing at how I was dancing. She's 13 years old and is now in grade 2 at the school. She told me how happy she is to finally be able to go to school, and how excited she is to see us building the grade 3 classroom where she will be going next. Thanks to Free the Children and Me to We volunteers who will keep coming back to ensure the school is finished. Amidst the poverty and struggles they have on a daily basis, the children always showed me joy in their hearts for the simplest things. Oh, and I found out why I was always greeted so special by them every time they saw me, with the special Amanda, 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 Amanda gestures. On one of the final days of the build site, one of the men came up to me and said, "You know why they do that to you, don't you? Amanda means dance in Fanti." All my friends heard him and they all started laughing, saying, "Ha, we knew you weren't that special." It was quite the joke on me. I thought I was the bomb. Oh well. I'll never forget it, and how it made me feel. He went on to explain that there's even an Amanda dance video, and that's what the children were doing whenever they saw me. Our final day at the build site, we all worked our hardest, knowing that Me to We volunteers would not be there again until March, when other students would come over to Ghana. When we finished our work, we all stood back with our tools put aside one last time, and proudly looked at our accomplishments and shared our joy with the community men that we worked with. The grade 1 and 2 classrooms were fully completed. The grade 3 classroom finally had a roof overhead and the walls were put up with the bricks that we had made. Only the windows needed to be put in and the plastering that we had started needed to be finished as well as the painting. The ground was all leveled out for the building to start for the grade 4 classroom, and we had just started to level out the grade 5 classroom. On that last day, we all got the opportunity to write our names on a brick that would be used for the grade 4 classroom construction. It was amazing to know that our names will be a part of the school forever, leaving a bit of our hearts and sweat in the community of Asemco. Our work completed, we then participated in a fun soccer game with the community. Team Ghana versus Team Canada. Canada won the game, but only because Kenneth, one of the 19-year-old village community members, played in our team, and he was an amazing soccer player. Otherwise, we would have been crushed. It was heartbreaking saying our goodbyes. We all broke off to say our special goodbyes to those we'd become so close to. As we were getting onto the bus, we were all shaking hands and high-fiving kids outside the bus through the window. As we were driving away, our bus driver turned on the music, and lo and behold, Celine Dion was singing My Heart Will Go On as the children ran behind our bus. There were many tears shed, and it was the hardest moment of all. After another long journey, I was welcomed home with loving arms from my family. But it was so bittersweet, as it was so hard to say goodbye to my new Ghana family. Thanks go out to all the work that Free the Children and Me to We volunteers have done to help the community and these children escape the cycle of poverty. I am so thankful to have been a part of this unique opportunity to volunteer to be part of their campaign for change. And for every single one of your donations that helped me get there, to extend my hands to help. Together, we work towards a sustainable future for education in Asemco. Keep supporting, and thank you, thank you, thank you. From Ghana to Canada, with love.